The world is watching. It almost, though, feels like they're spying on us. And they have some pretty strong reviews about last night. President Trump delivered the longest State of the Union in history, but it is not the length of the speech that has Trump's adversaries giving their 2 cents. First, Iran. The nation Trump is almost surrounded with our military might. The Tehran Times has this headline, quote, Trump's 2026 State of the Union painting a mirage of power. Now to Russia, where Putin continues to bedevil Trump as he seeks to settle Russia's war with Ukraine. Russia's state-owned news agency, TASS, writes this, quote, Trump states that United States seeks dominance in Western Hemisphere. And then the South China Morning Post, which is based in Hong Kong, but is certainly Beijing-friendly. It says, quote, Donald Trump touts U.S. Golden Age, avoids direct mention of China ahead of Beijing visit. In just a month, President Trump will be wheels up headed to China, but stop for a minute. Why do or would we care what China, Russia, and Iran think about the President's State of the Union? Besides their shared criticism of Trump and that they are obviously watching very closely, they also share something else, a bit more nefarious. We'll get to that. Also ahead, Jeffrey Epstein, the problem that just won't go away and in fact is still growing and causing problems from the grave. Problems for whom? It's not just British leaders today, but instead American billionaire Microsoft founder Bill Gates and former Secretary of the Treasury and former Harvard President Larry Summers. And also today, you might want to scratch Mexico off your spring break list. Yes, apparently hotels are really cheap and getting even cheaper with the news, but it might cost you something else. And first, Iran better listen up. President Trump issuing this warning to Iran during his State of the Union speech that Iran was obviously monitoring.
They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America. After Midnight Hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue. They're starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen.
According to the Associated Press, Tehran rejected President Trump's claims about its missile and nuclear programs as calling Trump's statements propaganda. So, is war inevitable? Seems like there is one last chance for Iran, and that last chance happens tomorrow. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner will be in Geneva, Switzerland to meet with the Iranian delegation. Earlier, I spoke with Democratic Senator from the state of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. Senator, thank you very much for joining me, sir.
Oh, my gosh, it's a pleasure to be here. Hi.
Senator, thank you. Senator, last night, obviously the president of the State of the Union mentioned Iran. All eyes are now on Iran. And Steve Witkoff is headed to Geneva to perhaps negotiate something, but it doesn't look particularly favorable. What is your reasonable expectation of what's going to happen?
Well, like, you know, everyone's talking about the State of the Union speech. And then when that came up last night, I think I might have been the only Democrat to stand up and clap, you know, the things that when the president referenced Midnight Hammer and military against Iran. So for me, with that, I don't think we can ever negotiate with Iran, because the last time there was a significant kind of treaty that ended up with 900 pounds of just below weapon grade uranium enrichment. So, and now after what Iran has done, they killed tens of thousands of their own young people in there. So this is clearly where we're at. And I also think that the Iranian regime, everything that we read and see, that the regime has been the weakest that they've been in decades right now. So I think we have a unique opportunity to topple it or to install a better way forward for Iran. So I'm open to that. And now I think I've heard that we are going to bring the Iranian war powers bill up tomorrow. And I just said that. I'm going to vote that down again, because I think the president absolutely needs to have the flexibility to have those kind of targeted kinds of. So I absolutely support that as a Democrat, but as someone, I think that's the right thing in the region.
Well, the other thing that's a little perplexing about that, you mentioned bringing up the Iran resolution tomorrow, is that we have not declared war, the United States, on any country since about 1942 on Romania. We have had so many military actions, whether you're talking about the Korean War or Vietnam or actions in the Middle East. We've had so many. And we also know that the War Powers Act of 1973 specifically gave President, or said that President then Nixon could take military action, but he had to then brief Congress within a certain period of time. So what is the purpose tomorrow of voting on this? I mean, what is being sought?
I don't know. I think it's they just want like a spot referendum for Iran, and to even bring that up. I mean, now we're staring Iran down right now. What kind of a message does it send that we're just going to put this out? And I think every single Democrat, other than myself, would vote for that. So for me, I don't see any value in it based on the timing right now. But, I absolutely think that the president has done the right thing about Iran consistently. And if anyone in Congress is committed to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear bomb, do you just want to talk about it? Or are you willing to just, provide the president the latitude to continue to destroy their program? And why else? Why else are they enriching uranium? Because clearly they want a nuclear bomb. And can you imagine what that means for Israel, for the region, and actually for the world right now, if they were able to? So I'm proud to stand in this issue with the president, and now he deserves to have the latitude, and I'm going to vote no. And that as far as I know, that dooms it, because there won't be enough votes.
I don't understand the Democrats not standing, as you mentioned, about this last night, and that you were the only Democrat. Because, I've been around long enough. I know that the Democrats, they're good Americans, and nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Democrats don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So really, so I don't understand. Is it just theater, or just because they hate Trump so much, or what is it? Because this is a perplexing problem, and as you note, if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, the world changes as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely executed tens of thousands of their own young people. We've all seen those pictures of those warehouses with body bags, and those poor parents had to walk around and to see the horror and the carnage just to try to identify your child. I mean, this is who they are. This is what Iran does. And now remember, Iran is the one that created Hamas and Hezbollah and created this king and the 10/7 massacre too. So that's why I don't know why that just seems to bother more Democrats than me, but it does me. And now, if anyone, they always say the same thing. Well, we can't allow them to acquire a nuclear bomb. It's like, yes, but if you're willing to do that, or to back someone that can actually make that happen, I'm proud to do that.
Well, but the thing is that when it comes to issues of war, I mean, we've had huge debates in this country going back about war and huge discussions. But when push comes to shove on something so important as wars, we do sometimes try to show a little more unity, even when we have oppositions in opinions. And that's what is so striking about the Democrats. Just it doesn't feel like it was a policy disagreement. It seemed more like a personal disagreement with the president.
Well, it just sometimes it's like, but I mean, like this is our government right now. This is the Senate. We're so dysfunctional. We kept our government shut down for 44 days. And again, I happen to be one of the rare Democrats to refuse to vote that. And now here, our entire DHS apparatus is shut down. And I'm the only Democrat that votes against that now too. We can't even agree on keeping our government open. If you take our, we don't deserve to be part of this conversation at this point right now, because, get our act together and reopen our government. And now, so that's why the situation in Iran is fluid. And now that's why we can just allow the president to make those kinds of smart, strategic kind of strikes at Iran, where we are now.
And these decisions are never easy for any president to make on either side of the aisle. These are, very, they're the toughest ones for presidents to make.
Yeah, and sometimes this kind of targeted kinds of strikes can actually bring peace. Now, it's like I think might have been the only one that clapped about announcing, the Gaza. That was a big deal, like it brought back all of the hostages, now. And now I think that's a big thing as well. So I don't know why. I don't care, the party of the president who was behind all of this. So for me, you have to celebrate that. And I don't know why. I want to focus on the things that we can agree on and now really back those things.
Senator Fetterman, always nice to talk to you, sir. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
Coming up, disgraced financier and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein strikes again from the grave. Plus, President Trump holds an important phone call with the world leader. Start guessing who that leader is and what they discussed when the record continues.
You served your country with honor. Now get the benefits you've rightfully earned. Paul R. Lawrence has written the book every veteran should own, Veterans Benefits for You. This step-by-step guide breaks down what you need to know, from financial compensation and disabilities to information for dependents and parents. This book is a must-read for all servicemen and women. Get your free copy today with our special offer. Call the number on your screen or go online to order.
I'm Omar Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. Now watch the 3 videos on our website and place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world. Now Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry. Thank you and God bless.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slomag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slomag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slomag.
How are lawmakers reacting to President Trump's State of the Union? Well, according to Axios head count, roughly 1/2 of House and Senate Democrats skipped the president's State of the Union address. And while the president was giving his State of the Union address, Democratic Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy held an event called the People's State of the Union. Here's what the senator said.
I am not at the State of the Union speech tonight because Donald Trump is making a mockery of this great institution, and he doesn't deserve an audience. I'm not at the State of the Union speech tonight because these are not normal times, and Democrats have to stop behaving normally.
Today, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said this from the Senate floor.
Last night was not America's State of the Union. It was Donald Trump's state of delusion. For 2 long hours, the president stood in the House chamber, congratulating himself, inflating his own ego, but offering no solutions to our country's many problems.
And who else reacted to President Trump's State of the Union? The president himself. And before I show you what the president said, I want to show you what he's referring to. Here's the president last night.
I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Now fast forward to today for the president's own reaction to last night. The president took to Truth Social to write in part, quote, "When you watch low-IQ Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib as they screamed uncontrollably last night at the very elegant State of the Union, such an important and beautiful event, they had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people, lunatics mentally deranged and sick, who frankly look like they should be institutionalized. When people can behave like that and knowing that they are crooked and corrupt politicians so bad for our country, we should send them back from where they came as fast as possible," end quote. Real Clear Politics co-founder and president Tom Bevan joins me. Nice to see you, Tom. And, you know, you get the sense, at least last night may be another example, is that the Democrats don't necessarily just disagree with President Trump. And we have disagreements in policies in this country going back almost 250 years, but that they hate him. And, you know, and the question is, does that, you know, how do the American people disagree with them, or do, you know, some of them hate them like the Democrats? And so looking into the midterms, look in your crystal ball and tell me your thoughts.
Well, Democrats definitely hate him. I mean, there's no question about that, and that's pretty clear in all of the data. Republicans generally love him. I mean, he still gets strong support among Republicans. If you look at his job approval rating and some other metrics, Republicans have stayed with him for the very much the most part. And then the question is independence. It's a smaller and smaller group who are truly independent, you know, anywhere from 10 to 15% probably. And they're the ones that go between loving him and hating him. And they will fluctuate, but based on, also the less ideologically driven folks. So they are less on Team Red or Team Blue, and they're more interested in, you know, is the president addressing the issues that matter most to me? Right now, that issue is the economy and inflation. And right now, independents are kind of sour on the way the president has been handling those issues. And that's something that he was trying to rectify last night.
Well, the 10 to 15%, it may seem like a little number, but when you've got such a closely divided country, that's a giant number of people not to have, you know, I mean, not to have on, quote, your side, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And, you know, as to the economy, is it possible that they don't approve of what he's doing on the economy, but that they approve even less of what the Democrats might be putting out as to what they would do with the economy?
Well, I mean, that's what's interesting is the one silver lining for Republicans as they're looking forward to November is that the Democrats have a lower favorable rating by about net of 7 or 9 points, depending on which poll you look at. So the Republican Party is actually viewed more favorably by more people in the country. However, you know, midterms are usually a referendum on the incumbent party, and right now Republicans control all the levers of government in Washington. So whatever, you know, voters are feeling bad about, whether it's the economy or inflation or whatever, it's easy to point to Republicans and say it's their fault because they're in charge.
Do they vote, though, on, you know, on the people that don't like Trump, the Democrats and that percentage of independents? Do they vote on that, you know, you're just a horrible person, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you? Or do they vote on I don't like your policies, which is vastly different? I mean, what's going to be the driving factor? They don't like the policies or they don't like him?
Well, Democrats don't like him, and we've seen in some of these special elections, especially midterms, right, are base elections. You need to turn out your base, and Democrats are way more enthusiastic. There was a poll out in the Washington Post this morning showing Democrats have a 14-point enthusiasm gap in their favor. And so they're the ones they're going to turn out because they hate him, and they hate his policies, but they hate him in particular. I think, again, independents are more policy-based. Is he doing things? Is he enacting policies that are helping me and my family and my economics? And so people, it's not to say independents don't have their thoughts about Trump, but they're not the driving force. They are much more sort of policy driven and issue driven.
Well, I could be dead wrong on this. I'm dead wrong on a lot of things, but I think what's going to be so highly significant in this race for the midterms is the Republicans' proposal for the midterm convention, because everybody will have forgotten last night. Everyone will still remember their pocketbooks, so whatever it is in October, September, whatever date that they have this. But the Republican Party does put on a great show in terms of inspiring. And if the Democrats are just going to sit back and cede that enthusiasm show to the Republicans, I think that will create a problem with Democrats at the, you know, no matter how much enthusiasm they have right now, is that midterm convention, which is brand new, I think will have an effect on the outcome because it's so close to Election Day.
You might be right. I mean, we're in uncharted territory because nobody's ever done this before. And again, you're right. By the time the convention happens, the cake is pretty much baked. I mean, most people have decided who they're going to vote for a month or even a year in advance. There are very few people who wait till the very end to decide who they're going to vote for. And a lot of those perceptions, particularly about the economy, are, by June, they'll be fixed. And, a late breaking low unemployment number or gas drops a little bit, that's not going to move the needle for most people. But if Republicans can get in front of a large audience and make the case for why they are, their stewardship of the economy has been good, and also do what Trump did last night. And this is again, it's not economic based, but it is on some of these cultural issues to say the Democrats are way outside of the mainstream on the trans issue or on illegal immigration, and to say, look, we're the party of you may not like us, you may not like what's going on, but they're worse and they're crazy and they are, if you're a normie, then you need to be with us. And so we'll see whether that's a case they can make.
Well, I think what's so particular about this, of course, of every midterm election is that President Trump's not on the ballot, but he really is on the ballot. I mean, more than any other midterm is that it's usually just whoever the members of Congress or Senate, but this will be a fascinating race. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics. Thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
That's right. We have an update. These updates just don't stop. It involves disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. He's also a pedophile. He strikes again. First to the co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates. Microsoft's slogan is, quote, "Your potential, our passion," end quote. Well, apparently Microsoft was not Gates' only passion. Yesterday, at his foundation, Gates held a town hall meeting with staffers, and according to the Wall Street Journal, during the meeting, Gates admitted that he had 2 affairs with Russian women while married to now ex-wife Melinda Gates. He also admitted to flying on Epstein's private plane, as well as spending time with the disgraced financier in the U.S. and abroad. Wall Street Journal goes on to say Gates told his foundation, quote, "I did nothing illicit. I saw nothing illicit. To be clear, I never spent any time with the victims, the women around him," end quote. And it's not just Gates. Now today, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers announced he will resign from teaching at Harvard University by the end of the current academic year. Summers, by the way, was also the president of Harvard University from 2001 to 2006. His resignation from teaching now comes after Harvard was conducting a review of emails and other documents that revealed Summers' relationship with Epstein. Following Summers' resignation, Harvard spokesperson Jason Newton told CNBC, quote, "In connection with the ongoing review by the university of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein that were recently released by the government, Harvard Kennedy School Dean Jeremy Weinstein has accepted Professor Lawrence H. Summers' resignation," end quote. Coming up, can President Trump end this war? That when the record continues.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax. They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
The name's Hampton. I've come a long way from my Humpty days and have learned a thing or two about crashes and falls. That's why I invest with Willow Wealth. They make it easy to diversify my portfolio with private markets. Plus, portfolios including private markets have outperformed traditional ones for the past 20 years. Not that it's a competition. Diversify your portfolio to help rise above public market volatility and level up your game. Those who know, know. Willow Wealth.
98% of Americans don't get enough magnesium, which is vital for bone, nerve, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol's magnesium glycinate. It's formulated for high absorption and is gentle on the stomach. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Go ahead, crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
I'm Omar. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. Now watch the 3 videos on our website and place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world. Now Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry. Thank you and God bless.
President Trump has negotiated several peace deals, but one peace deal he just can't seem to get across the goal line. And today, Trump spoke by phone with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, and tomorrow, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner will meet with Ukrainian officials. Ahead of those talks, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy revealed some of what is at stake, and my colleague Shelby Wilder spoke to Zelenskyy to ask him some important questions.
Hi, Greta. Great to be with you. Yeah, President Donald Trump briefly mentioned the Russia-Ukraine war during his State of the Union address last night, which marked 4 years of Russia's full-scale invasion. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said in recent days, though, that Kyiv is under significant pressure from Washington to reach an agreement with Russia. As you mentioned, I asked President Zelenskyy last night about the pressure he says that's coming from the United States. Take a listen. You are under immense pressure from the Trump administration to end the war, but what are the consequences that are being threatened or pressed to you? Is there a scenario in which you see the United States not selling weapons to European NATO allies? What is the pressure they are applying onto you if you do not agree to some deadline to reach a ceasefire?
We didn't get information from American administration and from President Trump and his team that we will not get weapon. And I think today's war is a big pressure on Europeans because only they pay for American weapon. And that's why I'm thankful to them. I'm thankful that program Pearl works, that we can buy weapon from the America, and they didn't block these possibilities. So during negotiations, you know that we have difficult questions, and they are about territories. Mostly, everything is around this.
And as you heard President Zelenskyy there saying, everything that really remains in these negotiations is regarding territories. We know also security guarantees, but that's the sticking point that, ultimately Russia wants Ukraine to surrender the rest of the Donbass, eastern Ukraine, which Ukraine says is a non-starter. But we know that President Zelenskyy and President Trump held a phone call today, as you noted, Greta, and that also included Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, ahead of these U.S.-Ukraine talks set for tomorrow in Geneva. We also heard the Kremlin say that Kirill Dmitriev, their sort of economic advisor that has been involved in these negotiations on the Russian side, will also be in Geneva tomorrow. Zelenskyy said that from this call with Trump, both teams working intensively. He also thanked the Trump administration for its active involvement in negotiations, adding that the goal of the upcoming meeting is to pave the way for a leader-level talk. So to try and get Zelenskyy and Putin in a room. Again, Zelenskyy said he's ready to do that, but we heard the Kremlin today pouring cold water on that notion. We heard the spokesperson for the Kremlin saying that they believe there should only be a leader-level meeting if it is essentially to sign a ceasefire. Zelenskyy did confirm that another round of trilateral talks, so that will be Russia, Ukraine, brokered by the United States, expected to take place at the beginning of March. Otherwise, we'll be watching closely for developments and comments coming from tomorrow's bilateral meeting between the American and Ukrainians in Switzerland. Greta?
Shelby Wilder in Kyiv, thank you. Ukrainian Ambassador to the United States, Olga Stefanishyna, joins me. Nice to see you, Ambassador.
Oh, Greta.
Ambassador, I've been covering this war 4 years. You've been living it 4 years. And, it seems so profoundly unfair to me what Putin has done to Ukraine. But Ukraine is in the awful position. It's either it gives up everything that Putin wants, or I don't know what else, because Putin won't even do a leader-to-leader meeting. And what do you do?
Well, the very fact that I'm sitting here in front of you and representing independent, sovereign Ukraine, which still stands, and we're talking to you on the first day after the beginning of the 5th year since the war started, means that we never give up and we always eventually find the solution how to survive. And this is not the exception. I think that the stakes are so high that we should not forget that my president have been the president of a war country who have said that we are ready to stop on the existing line. And this was
Which is Ukraine giving up something?
Yeah, it's different. It's different, and it has, it was like gone unnoticed. It was like nothing, but it's a huge thing for Ukraine. And I think the message from Russia is very clear. They are choosing to continue the war every day. They are not, willing to agree on anything, And it's not a good way to negotiate when you're saying that, we are going to move in a military way, but you can just sign it up on the paper. So we are not wasting money to the army.
What I also don't understand is that I cannot understand. I read that Russia's economy has problems. A lot of countries do, but that Putin has lost 1.2 million soldiers. And it's like, I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but it's how much more can Russia endure?
Well, to endure on the front line, they had to onboard foreign soldiers like North Korean, Cuban, and even Chinese soldiers, which were, becoming the prisoners of war in Ukraine. They were captured, killed in combat. But also, we should not forget that the major fuel of war is the benefits Russia gets from gas and oil. And as long as there are so many opportunities they still have around the globe, the longer they will endure.
And the numbers, it's the staggering numbers of the children, Ukrainian children who were kidnapped, is that if they were kidnapped at age 2, they are now age 6, having a Russian family, so their biological family, they don't even know their biological families. The Ukrainian families, and even, I don't know how many numbers of children and what ages, but there's certainly been, I see numbers in the thousands.
Well, as of now, I can confirm that we have 20,000 verified files of the kids who were abducted, and the numbers are even bigger because the numbers Russians were naming are far bigger. And what we can do as a state, we will make sure that every child who have been abducted is known, and that this child is forced to come back to Ukraine unconditionally, and
but even
this is a crime.
Even that child has a new family, probably fallen in love with the new family. That's the worst part. That's the cruelty of this.
Well, that's a war crime. This is a war crime, and all of the abducted children should be unconditionally brought back to Ukraine because we are responsible for them. They have families, they have their homes, and yes, this is a huge crime. And yes, the longer the war is lasting, the longer Putin thinks that he can go unnoticed with continued crimes, the longer the horrific indoctrination and militarization of kids is happening. One thing in the families, but the other thing, the kids on the occupied territories, they've been militarized and indoctrinated, and then they were forced to join the Russian army to fight against their own, citizens they know, their own country. This is the crimes, but, what the discussion about is right now is to stop the hostilities, to stop the active war engagement, but also these crimes will never be forgotten, and the accountability should follow.
Well, I very much appreciate, Shelby Wilder, my colleague who is there now, she spent a lot of time in Ukraine, and it hasn't been cheap for Newsmax. And I appreciate that Newsmax has spent, a lot of money covering this war, because the atrocities are just breathtaking, and the stories, and so often we get, we get involved in other stories and forget, but.
Thank you, Greta.
It's just terrible. Anyway, Ambassador, always nice to see you. Always nice to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the situation is serious. What one high-ranking senator is now sounding the alarm over. That when the record continues.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
When I first decided to invest in gold, I was a bit nervous and unsure how to start. Luckily, I found Noble Gold Investments. From the very first call, they made investing easy. No pushy sales tactics, no gimmicks, and no confusing free silver offers with hidden fees. Just honest advice tailored to my needs, giving me confidence every step of the way. If you're new to gold investing or want a partner you can trust, visit noblegoldinvestments.com.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist. This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America, with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors. At their peaks, Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
Instagram teen accounts with automatic protections.
Failed launch. Help.
With content settings now inspired by 13+ movie ratings.
Still working on it?
Getting there.
And limits on who can contact teens.
Oh, widen your fuselage. Let's make a stop.
Okay.
Good sanding helps epoxy. 3, 2, 1.
Instagram teen accounts with automatic protections.
You deserve high quality. You really do. At Balance of Nature, we don't cut corners. We could cut corners or extract individual vitamins and minerals rather than source whole foods. But that's not who we are. We don't isolate one specific part and sell it alone. Why? Because phytonutrients are woven into the whole plant. We are real ingredients only, always. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save today.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine. You moved in. You nested.
Hey, what are you doing?
You partied. You cuddled. You made egg rolls. You slept in. Or tried to. And you kept growing. Now it's time for the next chapter. With Open Door, get an all-cash offer for your home in 24 hours. Because saying goodbye should be the hardest part. Move into your future with Open Door.
President Trump could not have been plainer nor clearer. Last night he said he will not allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. The president briefly laid out to Congress and the American people his case for possible military action. Foreign Affairs correspondent Alex Salvi joins me. Alex.
Yeah, Greta, if you were watching the State of the Union last night, what President Trump was essentially doing was laying out a justification for striking Iran if he does decide to go down that route. He was looking at the atrocities that the regime has committed in the past, as well as the dangers that it presents to the United States included in the future. In fact, Trump claiming that the Islamic Republic killed upwards of 32,000 protesters earlier this year. And he's accusing Tehran of developing weapons that can soon hit the United States, the mainland United States. The president telling Iran that he's already showed restraint with Operation Midnight Hammer and says the next strike will be much more severe.
They were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again.
Now, a State Department official confirming to Newsmax that Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be meeting with their Iranian counterparts Thursday in Geneva, Switzerland, in hopes of advancing negotiations which so far have failed to achieve the administration's desired results. This all taking place as the U.S. is amassing one of the largest military buildups in modern history off the coast of Iran. Secretary of State Marco Rubio earlier in the day briefing the Gang of Eight, the nation's top lawmakers, which departed from the meeting with a short but simple message.
Closed-door briefings are fine, but the administration has to make its case to the American people as something as important as this.
Now, of course, time is of the essence. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arriving in Israel this morning for a two-day visit, what could be a short-lived sigh of relief for the Iranians. Many military analysts believe that the U.S. will hold off on striking Iran while a foreign leader is in the country that would presumably be a primary target of Tehran if it were to retaliate against a potential operation, Greta.
Alex Salvi, thank you.
Thank you.
Pennsylvania Republican Senator, member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Dave McCormick joins me. Nice to talk to you, Senator.
Hey, good afternoon.
Senator, tell me this. Last June, we hit Israel and the United States hit the nuclear facilities of Iran. We sort of thought that that put them back a couple years. Now, fast forward to right now, and sort this out for me. If we take military action, will it be for nuclear weapons reasons, which would suggest to me that we didn't set them back a couple years last June, or will it be because they passed some sort of red line because those protesters are basically begging the U.S. to help them? Which is it?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, we got to step back and say, first of all, this is a regime that has blood on its hands. It's killed thousands of Americans. They have been close to a nuclear weapon for decades and have said very explicitly that they would use that against Israel, against the United States. And what we're doing right now is tightening the noose on a bankrupt regime. Bankrupt economically, 80% of the people are within poverty. Bankrupt morally, people protesting in the streets. Bankrupt militarily, because, as you said, we did set them back dramatically in their nuclear program and their missile capability, but they still have very significant military capabilities, particularly their missile capability, which is ranks in the thousands. And we're not entirely sure how much nuclear capacity remains. So I think what we're trying to do here is stop this brutal ravaging of their people, which is happening to the protesters. I think we're trying to set them back further militarily, and frankly, I think it's likely we'll see a regime change because of this pressure, some combination of the economic pressure and military pressure in the weeks and months ahead. I suspect if we were talking at this time next year, there would be a different regime in Iran.
Yeah, the Ayatollah is 86 or 87, soon to be 87 years old. All right, turning now to the Democrats last night and their response to this. Do you have a sense that the Democrats have a policy difference and want to discuss it with the president, or do you have a sense that they just hate him and whatever he says, it's just going to be, if he says yes, they're just going to say no? But do they want to have a discussion? And there are limitations of how much can be said in the open, but we do have the Gang of Eight that can meet secretly with the president. But tell me what's going on.
You mean with the Democrats as it relates to Iran?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, are they really so much opposed to taking military action because of the nuclear capabilities, the missiles, and the protesters? Do they think it's unwise, or do they just not like Trump, or they don't like the fact that they're not being consulted,
Yeah, listen,
although I don't think the law requires that?
Yeah, first of all, I think the law is very clear on this. I think the president, both in the case of Venezuela and Iran, in the previous attack and whatever happens in this case is operating well within his authority given to him by the Constitution. But I think that the Democrats are now in a position where they're mostly against whatever Trump is for. I think that was evident last night in the State of the Union. These are 80-20 issues. Voter ID is an 80-20 issue, and the Democrats are universally opposed to it, despite the fact that their voters are very much in favor of it. The same with transgender ideology. The Democratic Party now is not for something. It's really against what President Trump's doing and what the Republicans are doing. And listen, I sat back last night and said, what a year it's been in terms of the president's promises, but also what we've accomplished in terms of closing the border, stopping the flow of fentanyl, energy dominance, bringing back opportunity for working families. Still work to do in healthcare, work to do in energy prices, work to do on housing prices. But make no mistake, this country is going in a radically different, much improved direction because of the leadership of President Trump and Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. I think the Democrats are opposed to that. They're not for anything.
Well, I think the Democrats are either uneducated or they're not being fair on this whole idea of whether the president can go forward. Because you talk about, I mean, the power to declare a war is in Congress, but we haven't declared war since 1942 against Romania, which I keep telling everybody. We've had lots of wars. We haven't declared war. And in 1973, is that Congress essentially gave the authority of President Nixon to do military actions, provided that he report to Congress within a certain period of time. I think it was about 30 days. They were trying to limit the president, but it has had the effect of basically expanding the president's opportunities to take military action. So that discussion is really not a very fair one that I hear coming out of the Capitol from the Democratic side of the aisle.
Not at all. The War Powers Resolution is very clear. The president has a retrospective responsibility to report out after a certain period, but can certainly act based on his belief of a threat to America's security. And I saw it firsthand. So we saw all the consternation from the Democrats, the pushback on Venezuela. I was actually in the 82nd Airborne when we did an operation in Panama. I didn't go into Panama, but was part of that unit. And the circumstances were exactly the same as Venezuela. Where you had a leader that was indicted. We put 25,000 troops on the ground. There were 23 killed in action. Democratic majorities in the House and the Senate stood up and applauded President Bush 41 when he took that action. The exact same thing happened with Venezuela and President Trump, and there was all this hand-wringing and outrage that the president hadn't consulted the Congress. It's complete nonsense. It's really political theater, and it's, again, back to the point of they're just against Trump and against progress. They're not for anything.
Well, political theater can be very entertaining when you're in the cable news business, but when it comes to questions of war, it's not. It is not a good thing. Indeed, it isn't. It's way too serious. Senator Dave McCormick, thank you, sir.
Nice to be with you. Thank you.
Imagine you're in your car, sitting at a red light, listening to some music, when all of a sudden the ground opens. Well, yesterday that did happen in Omaha, Nebraska. Terrifying footage shows a sinkhole swallowing 2 cars. Wisely, though, the cars behind the sinkhole quickly reversed. Local police say bystanders jumped into action to help. Police say the drivers were able to get out of their cars. There were no injuries. Later, a towing company pulled the cars from the sinkhole. So, how did this happen? Omaha police say a water main break caused the collapse. Police added that it caught everyone by surprise. No kidding. Coming up, why are hotels in Mexico so cheap? That when the record continues.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
I'm Omar. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. Now watch the 3 videos on our website and place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world. Now Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry. Thank you and God bless.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
3, 2, 1. I found Tunnel to Towers just through a TV commercial. I was like, oh, I wonder if they help out injured first responders. So when the towers did reach out, it was awesome.
Men and women like Jay Youngblood, who served their country, are so deserving of their independence and the ability to take care of their children and provide for them. And that's what the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is doing when we give them a house.
Tunnel to Towers shows there's still humanity out there. Please donate $11 a month to t2t.org. Not again.
Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
Take a look at this. Hotels in Mexico are really cheap. TikTok user Frank Rosaficio posted prices in the town of Guadalajara. He found some hotels going for $9 a night. So why are prices so low? Most likely because over the weekend, violence erupted after Mexico, with U.S. help, eliminated a cartel leader. He was known as El Mencho. And as we reported this week, some Americans were trapped in Guadalajara while the violence raged. State Department told Americans to shelter in place, so now a lot of Americans are rethinking their travel to Mexico. But the United States Embassy in Mexico has a new message about safety there. The latest alert reads, quote, public transportation and businesses continue to return to normal operations following a law enforcement operation that took place on February 22nd. U.S. citizens are no longer urged to shelter in place, end quote. And another note, this summer, Mexico will host some of the World Cup soccer games. Yesterday, Mexico's president said there is no risk to visitors who are coming for those games. Coming up, President Trump does not want to give something back. That when the record continues.
Big media will never stop their antics, their bias, their ugly insinuations, their nasty attacks. Well, they may never stop, but I will never stop exposing them.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Woke up and I said, the pain is gone.
And I've got much better range of motion. I'm able to carry these big canvases around.
When I woke up in the morning, I could open and close my hands, stand on my feet without them killing me.
If you're tired of pain relief that doesn't last, it's time for a different approach with Relief Factor.
Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free daily supplement that actively supports your body's response to inflammation, taking on pain at its source, for relief that stays with you all day, every day.
Now I'm getting up in the morning, enjoying the day, gardening, woodworking, and just the sense of life that I didn't have before.
The secret to Relief Factor's effectiveness is its science-backed formula of 4 natural ingredients, working through 4 different metabolic pathways, helping reduce, even eliminate pain for good. If pain is part of your life, it's time to give Relief Factor a try. Right now, our 3-week quick start is only $19.95. Simply call or go online to get started.
Within 3 days, I had complete relief from the pain in my hands, and I've been taking it ever since.
Since Relief Factor is 100% drug-free, it's safe to take every day. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. So make Relief Factor part of your daily routine and see the difference it can make in your life. Right now, try our 3-week quick start for only $19.95, less than $1 a day.
I have told so many of my friends about the experience that I had with Relief Factor. In fact, I've even given them some. And so now we're all out of pain.
Whether it's your back, neck, joints, or muscles, don't go for a quick fix and just mask your pain temporarily. Give your body relief that stays with you all day, every day. Because when you feel better, you live better.
Relief Factor literally changed my life.
Call or go online to try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start today.
Go ahead, crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
What an exciting moment last night at the State of the Union. The United States men's hockey team walked through the doors into the House chamber wearing their gold medals. During the speech, President Trump gave one player a special award. He said he will award the Medal of Freedom to the team's goalie. Before the speech, the president spent time with the team at the White House. That is when he gave a new title to the team's goalie.
These are the American, the U.S. team that won the gold medal, and I got myself one great Secretary of Defense, the goalie. Hegseth is not happy to hear this.
President Trump, who is known to be fond of gold, even got to try on one of the medals.
Huh? I love you. I'll put it on you. Absolutely. I'm not giving it back. I'm not giving it.
I'll trade you that for a pen.
Hey, that's cool. There we go. I never thought I'd ever have this on my.
Okay, sit back, sit back.
Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. Stay with Newsmax.